The Country Club of Charleston's ballroom glowed with southern elegance, its crystal chandeliers casting warm light over 200 wedding guests celebrating my brother Michael's marriage to Victoria Hamilton, whose family's textile fortune had built half the historic mansions dotting the city's cobblestone streets. White magnolias and Spanish moss created the perfect backdrop for what Dad had declared the most important social event our family has ever hosted. I sat at table 12, strategically positioned behind a towering arrangement of white roses that provided merciful cover from the evening's main festivities. Not quite banished to the overflow section, but carefully distanced from the family tables where Michael's Harvard Business School classmates and Victoria's Junior League friends celebrated another victory of traditional Southern achievement. My father Richard Chin stood at the microphone in his custom-tailored tuxedo, commanding attention with the same authoritative presence that had built his career as senior vice president at Charleston First National Bank. At 58, he radiated the confidence of someone who'd spent 3 decades managing other people's money and expectations with equal skill. Ladies and gentlemen, Dad's voice carried across the ballroom with practiced authority. Thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate Michael and Victoria's beginning together. Looking at this room, I see the finest families of Charleston. People who understand what real success looks like. Polite applause rippled through the crowd. I recognized faces from the banking district Old Charleston Society, and the country club's most exclusive membership tier. The kind of people who measured worth through bloodlines, bank balances, and business connections stretching back generations. Success, Dad continued, his smile taking on the particular warmth he reserved for public speaking, comes from making smart choices and following proven paths. My son Michael exemplified this perfectly. Harvard MBA, rapid advancement at Palmetto Investment Group, and now marrying into one of Charleston's most respected families. I maintained my neutral expression while sipping sweet tea, having learned over 29 years to recognize the warning signs when Dad shifted into his favorite lecture mode about life choices and family reputation. My daughter Sarah here represents a different path. Dad gestured vaguely toward my partially hidden table, his voice carrying fond patience. She's still finding herself, unlike her successful siblings. While Michael built his career in investment banking, Sarah chose to explore various opportunities in technology consulting. Scattered chuckles arose from tables filled with Charleston's banking elite and Victoria's society connections. I could feel curious glances searching for the family member being gently mocked for her unconventional choices. Some children follow traditional routes to success, Dad announced with practiced tolerance. Others need more time to discover their potential. Sarah's 29 now, still working from her apartment on various computer projects, still figuring out what she wants to accomplish professionally. The laughter was polite but pointed, the kind reserved for family disappointments who required charitable understanding rather than genuine respect. I lifted my tea glass in a small salute toward the head table while checking my phone discreetly. A notification from Forbes. Your feature interview about youngest female tech CEO goes live Monday morning. We love Sarah exactly as she is, Dad continued with magnanimous brotherly affection, even if her path hasn't been as clear-cut as Michael's traditional success. Not everyone can handle the pressure of real business responsibility. The ballroom filled with approving murmurs from Charleston's financial establishment. Michael basked in the comparison, his arm tightening around Victoria's waist as she smiled adoringly at her new husband's superior life choices. Uncle James materialized beside my table, his bourbon-enhanced voice carrying sympathetic concern. Sarah, honey, that was a touching speech from your father. Really puts things in perspective about career planning. Definitely memorable, I replied, standing politely as he claimed the empty chair beside me. You know, it's never too late to consider business school, James continued with the authority of someone who'd spent 40 years in commercial lending. I've got connections at several good programs in the Southeast. Maybe not Harvard like Michael, but solid schools that could help you transition into serious corporate work. Across the ballroom, I watched Dad accepting congratulations from Charleston's banking community for his inspiring words about patient family support and understanding different paths to success. Among the group stood Jonathan Pierce, President and CEO of Charleston First National, Dad's boss and mentor for the past 15 years. The technology thing is fine for experimenting, James explained earnestly, but eventually you need stability. Proper salary, benefits, advancement opportunities. Michael really has it figured out. Steady progression through investment banking, executive compensation, networking with established families. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. CEO succession announcement confirmed for Monday. Board documentation filed. All department heads notified of transition meeting. Speaking of established families, James lowered his voice conspiratorially. Have you met Mr. Pierce? Built Charleston First National into one of the Southeast's premier regional banks. He's been mentoring your father personally, positioning him for senior executive advancement. I observed Pierce across the room, noting his relaxed demeanor as he celebrated with his rising executive and the society connections that marriage into the Hamilton family would provide Dad's career. That's wonderful for Dad, I said sincerely. Exactly. Traditional banking success, proven leadership, community respect. Your father understands what real achievement looks like. James gestured toward the celebration. You could learn from his approach to building lasting professional relationships. My phone buzzed again. This time from Charleston First National's Chief Financial Officer. Acquisition documents finalized. Regulatory approval confirmed. Monday morning announcement prepared per your instructions. I deleted the message and returned my attention to James's continued analysis of superior career choices while Dad accepted praise for his touching tolerance of family disappointments. Monday morning would indeed demonstrate what real achievement looked like. In ways that would surprise everyone present. Monday morning arrived with Charleston's typical humid warmth, the kind of weather that made even corporate boardrooms feel stifling. I dressed carefully in my finest Chanel suit, a recent acquisition for occasions requiring serious executive presence rather than my usual startup casual attire. Charleston First National occupied a historic building on Broad Street, its antebellum architecture and mahogany fixtures projecting the traditional Southern authority that attracted old money families and established businesses. I'd been here several times over the past year, though always through discreet channels that kept my involvement invisible to Dad's colleagues. The executive conference room was filling when I arrived at 8:45 a.m. Board members, senior officers and regulatory representatives occupied leather chairs around the polished table. Dad sat near the middle, his expression confident but puzzled by the unusual Monday morning emergency session. Jonathan Pierce stood at the head of the table, his distinguished presence commanding immediate attention from Charleston's banking elite. Ladies and gentlemen, Pierce began with the authority of someone who'd built a regional bank into a billion-dollar institution. Thank you for this urgent meeting. We're here to discuss the ownership transition finalized over the weekend. Dad's confident expression flickered. As senior vice president, he was typically briefed on major corporate changes well before general announcements. The board has accepted an acquisition offer from Magnolia Financial Holdings, Pierce continued. Effective immediately, Charleston First National operates under new ownership with corresponding leadership changes. The room buzzed with whispered conversations. Dad leaned forward, his banking instincts shifting into crisis management mode. I'd like to introduce our new chairman and chief executive officer, Pierce said, gesturing toward the conference room entrance. Please welcome Sarah Chin. The silence that followed was absolute. I entered through the main doors, my movement drawing every eye in the room. Dad's face went completely white as recognition dawned. Several board members glanced between us, sensing family dynamics they couldn't immediately comprehend. Thank you, Jonathan. My voice carried easily across the room, the same quiet tone that had frustrated Dad for 29 years. Over the past 18 months, Magnolia Financial has been evaluating strategic opportunities in regional banking. Charleston First National represents an ideal platform for expansion throughout the Southeast. Dad's hands gripped his portfolio. Pierce nodded respectfully, his decades of experience helping him adapt to unexpected ownership transitions. Current organizational structure requires comprehensive review, I continued, opening my briefcase. Personnel decisions will be based on demonstrated performance and strategic value. I placed termination documents in front of each senior officer. Richard Chin, your position as senior vice president is eliminated effective immediately. The unsuccessful daughter had just fired her successful father. Dad's banking career ended before Michael's honeymoon photos were developed. His termination became effective immediately, along with the elimination of his entire commercial lending department. The country club membership and society connections he'd cultivated disappeared when his professional standing evaporated overnight. Charleston's banking community buzzed with speculation about how Richard Chen's unsuccessful daughter had quietly built a financial empire while working from her apartment on computer projects. Michael's marriage to Victoria survived, though the Hamilton family's enthusiasm cooled considerably once they realized their new in-laws lacked the banking influence they'd expected from the relationship. Jonathan Pierce thrived under new ownership. His institutional knowledge and client relationships earned him a substantial retention package and expanded authority over regional operations. I kept Charleston First National as the cornerstone of Magnolia Financial's southeast expansion. The bank's revenue increased 38% in the first year under my leadership, primarily through technology integration and strategic partnerships that previous management had overlooked. Dad found work as a loan officer at a small community bank outside Columbia. The position paid 60% of his former salary but offered opportunities to rebuild without family complications. The Forbes interview ran Monday morning with the headline, 29-year-old CEO disrupts regional banking while family thinks she's still finding herself. Success looks different when you're actually successful. Traditional paths sometimes lead nowhere. Computer projects occasionally become banking empires.